500 salesman somewhere, and I'm just giving this talk I do about familiarity breeds contempt. Most of them are there because they have to be, but I feel like, if five people in this room get a little motivated to change their point of view and look at things a little differently, then that's cool. I mean, I'm getting paid one way or the other, but if I can have an effect on, it's like a football coach. You can't affect the whole team, but some players walk away. They go through college, they get in their 30s and realize, man, I didn't know how much I was learning about myself at the time. Now it's coming before my eyes what I learned. So that's why I do these.
That's awesome. It's as an educator, you try to impact all you can, but if you can reach that one student, it makes it all worth it.
It is funny, it's I know sometimes when young folks hear that, they go, well, that's, what do they read that in a book? It's going, no, man, I want people to have a good life doing what they want to do. It's and if an adult can can give you a little, it's like the Sphinx giving you a riddle that you have to figure out. And maybe it's going to take you some years, and someday you go, hey man, that guy was right. I'm glad I was listening. So uh that's my hope anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I want to be respectful of your time. So with all, you've given a lot of great information. I actually started recording because you're all this wisdom you've already bestowed that I wanted to make sure I
Oh, I'm
captured.
I'm glad what you're recording. Whenever I do a podcast, I go turn on record right now because I'm pumped, locked, and loaded and ready to go.
I like it. You're ready to go. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to slow you down. I just want to introduce you to my students. First, I really want to thank you for participating. On behalf of myself and White Bear Lake School District and our career pathway, we really thank you for this. We actually send out an invite and put it out to the whole school about this. It's something I just started on a whim to give my students opportunity to see success, and it's turned into something pretty successful. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Well, this is the virtual version of everybody getting to leave class and go to the gym and watch a guy talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start off with, would you call your career or your profession, would you say you're a performer for your life as your career? What would you classify as your current job?
You know, I've always I've always labeled it as just being an entertainer. When it started, when I applied for Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus Clown College, and I went to clown college in 1979. So, in those years, we were circus clowns, but when we would do our little 1040 tax things at the end, they told us to write down theatrical entertainer. And it always felt pompous to me, theatrical entertainer. But it looked better to the IRS to write circus clown. You know, so I mean, it's even if I'm flying somewhere and I'm on an airplane and I'm chatting with somebody and they go, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I usually go, paper products. I'm the guy that sells birthday party hats with a little underneath. Because if I say juggler, they'll hand me a cell phone, a pair of glasses, and a lime wedge. You go, here, juggle these. So you have to, that's the curse of it. So it's kind of like, you have to kind of have a little code. So I've just always thought entertainer, and I really, to me, I basically got into it. I always felt out of laziness because it was so immediate. I didn't realize I was putting all this time in practicing and learning these things. Uh, because I don't know, when you're young, sometimes you're not thinking in all the areas around you. And later, when you get to be my age, and for any of your students, I'm 61. It even sounds weird saying that, but I can look back and analyze some of these situations and going, oh, okay, I see the path, that's kept me going for what I consider myself as always sort of a lazy. My teachers would always call me an underachiever. They go, Sean, you're a gifted underachiever. And I go, does that mean I'm gifted at underachieving? Or does that mean I'm gifted slash yet an underachiever? And they went, you're gifted slash underachiever. Because I grew up overseas a lot, they would tell me, Sean, you're smart in areas that we can't grade you in, unfortunately. But the areas that we have to grade you in, you don't seem to work hard at it sometimes. And that was my response with going, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's the teacher. So I'd get sent to the principal's office on that comment once in a while. And I go, no, I believe it. Like, if I had a teacher like you and I loved your class and you really put your heart out to me, I would work 100% for you. But if you're a teacher that just never paid me any mind, read out of the book, looked like you were doing the minimal, I wasn't going to put in the time either. That was just my MO.
And you said you had a lot of, you look back, there's a lot of steps that got you to where you are, because you learned how to juggle at about age 8, right?
No, I learned, I was in the 8th grade when I got a unicycle.
Okay.
And then I was always a bad math student. You know, math was just a struggle for me, still is. And my dad, who was a Navy chief, and that's why we lived overseas so much. My mother was from Ireland. My dad was from South Carolina. And, you know, he was a Navy chief for 26 years. And he used to tell me when I'd have a bad grade, he'd say, son, 4 words, benefit of the doubt. And my dad didn't talk a lot. And then he'd be real quiet. And I'd be standing there going, please, Father, explain more. He'd go, you go up to your math teacher and you ask to do an extra credit project. He said, you're going to get, your grade point average is going to go up a little bit for you asking. Because that teacher's going to go, oh, this kid wants to do better. He said, then you got to deliver something. And in 10th grade algebra, no, it was 9th grade algebra. I wrote a poem called Casey at the Board. It was a takeoff of that Casey at the Bat, and I illustrated it. I read it for our class, and my math teacher asked me, she said, Sean, can you stay and do this for every class? So for 2 days, I got out of all my other classes to perform this poem I'd written. And, you know, I told my teacher, I said, all I need is a C-. If I can bring a C- home in math, my parents will be fine with it. And she said, you're going to need 108 points to get there. So they let all the classes vote. And they were like going, yeah, man, give him the points. He kept us out of class. And then in 11th grade geometry, I taught myself to juggle to get up and go, oh, this is infinity. Isosceles. Back to infinity. And infinity goes on a long, long time. And I just got up and juggled. And my teacher said, so you learned to do that to get your grade up? And I said, I did. And they gave me the C-. So that was what I was saying earlier. One of my teachers at my high school that I met, Mr. Porter, the one I was talking about, who said, Sean, you're a gifted underachiever. He also said, Sean, you've taken what was your nemesis, mathematics, and you have turned it into your ally. You let being bad in math, you were so desperate to not be in lockdown in your room that you taught yourself to juggle so that you could get a better grade in math. I said, it wasn't, sir, the lockdown so much. I enjoyed that. It was my dad's belt that I was a little afraid of, you know? So it was, you know, and that's a lesson I've thought about going sometimes. When you're bad at something and you're striving to get a better grade, it may lead to something that ultimately ends up being a career for you. You know, no guarantees, but it did for me.
You never know where your careers and passions come out of. Like all of a sudden, it's just like, holy cow, that's really neat.
You know, we can, and it's true. Meg and I finally watched that movie called Parasite that got an Oscar. And, you know, we didn't want to read it because, I mean, we did have to read it because it's in Korean. So you have to read a lot of subtitles. And we were like, I don't want to read my way through a movie. But we did. And there was a very prophetic moment in there where the father of the Parasite family said, why do you make these plans? You make plans, and plans fall apart. I mean, I think it's good to have an outline and a basic plan of your life, but it's like with this pandemic, we didn't see that coming. We can't really do anything. So you got to be able to improvise within it. And you can't lock your plan in so tight that if it goes bad, it's going to crumble your world. You got to be able to improv, dance to the right, swing, come up with an uppercut. You got to stay loose. And I think it's like you plan the best you can and you leave 10% open so you can play around with that and be ready to dance with whatever comes your way. That, I think that's what worked for me, was going, hey, I got an opportunity here. I'm going to go with it. And I don't know where it's going. I was never one to think about money. I just wanted you had written in your questions, one of the things my dad the Navy chief would say, he'd go, son, make sure you get a job that you like. Even better if you love it, because you're going to be working a long time. And I said, well, Dad, do you love being a Navy chief? He says, I do love it. And I said, Dad, what do chiefs do? And he went, chief stuff. And he walked away. And I thought that was like chief stuff. But, that was a great lesson to hear. This, look for something that you're going to love doing, because, when you're 18, 19, 20, that's a long time ahead of you to be working. And why have a job that you hate for the next 40 years,
I completely agree. And you don't have to find that career right away.
No, you don't.
A lot of my students, I got to do this, I got to do this. And it's like, you're still really young at 18. I think back when I was 18 and you think, I got to have it figured out. I needed a path. This, you design a linear path, and it doesn't work that way. Myself, I went to school to be a mechanic. I worked at several different shops, and I realized that wasn't my true passion. It was teaching the younger techs how to fix stuff was, my true passion. And so my automotive background turned into a teaching job. It's interesting how you can start with one career and it weaves to another one, and eventually you find your true passion.
I watched this documentary on Netflix about millennials, because me being a boomer, you always say, my people, those millennials. Well, I'm going, you know what? I want to get in the mind and figure out. I don't even know what millennial means. And I watched this documentary, and really what I took away from it was, I was raised in that era where, my parents, you work till you're 65, you retire, and you live your life out. Well, it doesn't work like that anymore. And I was also raised in an era where you just took any crap job you had and did it. And this documentary taught me that millennials' experiences are a better thing. It's like, they just have and it's just the way the world goes, point of views. They look at the world, circus performers now look at it differently than like Meg and I did, being, the kids of the 1970s when we graduated high school in 76, and you're kind of looking for your career. Points of view change. And I think as an older person, the best thing you can do is go, I want to understand the current point of view. Now, it's not really going to alter my point of view that much, but it'll make me more sensitive to the point of view. And one thing with the millennial thing I took out was, like, now I go to a grocery store where I can buy a few more local grown things, going, I'd rather support the local lettuce farmer, and they're working hard, and I can look at a picture of them. So that open mind, and like you said too, you're working as an auto mechanic, you're going, I'm tired of all this grease on my hands. I'd rather just lean over and have them do it while I tell them what to do. But, be open to that career change that may happen. It's like when I was talking earlier about college. When I was in college with commercial art, I'm glad all this performing came my way, because had I not been there, I would have not really taken it seriously. I would have just been kind of floating around. And I was getting ready to graduate in my commercial art degree. And what I realized, I was going, I don't want to do this, man. It's not my true passion. It's something I learned, and it's something I can do, but I don't think it's what I really want to do, And then that led me to signing up for clown college and seeing if I could get accepted. And I was doing some theater on the side. And I like theater, but I like circus because it was more physical. It felt a bit more like a sport. And I didn't know anything about it. So I was curious where this journey would take me.
So how do you apply for clown college?
Well, they don't even have it anymore.
Because, it's sad that the Ringling Brothers and that have closed down. They had a really great last performance. That was spectacular. But, back when you did it, how did you hear about it to sign up for it?
Well, let me jump back, but that show closing, it made me and Meg so sad, because I always think there might be one of your students or somebody in the White Bear High School that was like me, that sort of gets up into college and then junior college, and you're kind of going, I'm training in this career, but is this really what I want to do? And I had to make a decision at a certain point. My dad died when I was a senior in high school, And I started to realize, oh, I got to get serious here, man. I got to like figure out what I'm doing in life. And that didn't click in until I was in junior college. And, it was, I feel that there might be somebody like me that doesn't have the opportunity to go to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College and then go onto the show and live on a train and travel the country by train for 3 years. That was my salvation, Meg's too, because we could make a living and learn on the job. But, my sister had taken me to see Ringling Brothers probably when I was in like the 9th grade, me and some friends. And all we did was run around under the bleachers looking for money and half smoked cigarettes. And I remember peeking out and seeing the show a few times, but my buddies weren't interested, but I had a program, I had a Ringling Brothers program, and I kept it under my mattress, and I'd pull it out at night. And there was a big centerfold, and the centerfold was this ad for Clown College. And I'd look at all these weird hippy dippy clowns posing on this Ringling Brothers bus and go, who are these people? Where does that take you? What is that job about? I have no idea where that goes. I know where most careers take you. I have no idea where this takes you. So after looking at that for years, man, I whipped it out. There was an application. I filled the application out, sent it in to get an application in the mail. And the application came about 3 months later. And it was the most intense application I'd ever filled out in my life, to send back in, seeing if you would get accepted to Clown College. And they only, took out of like 5,000 applicants, they'd only take 60 a year. And I made it my first try. So, but they'd ask you these questions like, what was your first proud accomplishment in life and why? And how do you enter a room and why? And when was the last time you cried and why? And explain familiarity breeds contempt in your own words. And question after question after question after question, that you had these little space to either write, and it was a little bitty space on that thing to write in, or you had to type it in. And basically they're doing a psychological profile to see if you're going to fit, no sense being an auto mechanic if you're going, I just don't like titanium and steel and grease. Ugh! I don't like a bloody knuckle. Ratchet wrenches, hate them. So you go, son, you might not want to be a auto mechanic.
I had to do a personality test for when I went to work for BMW and Mini, and they're like, you only get 2 attempts at it, so make sure you do well. I'm like, oh, okay. I took it the first time and failed. I'm like, I didn't know you could fail a personality test. So I'm like, okay. So I took it my second time. I failed it again. I'm like, now what? So I went back downstairs and to the manager, and I'm like, excuse me, sir. I failed this personality test twice. What does that mean? Am I, not getting the job? And I drove from Minnesota down to Memphis, Tennessee to apply for this job. And he's like, oh, no, just go do it again. So the third time I did it, and same questions, and I did it a little different because it was one of those where you had to say, I strongly agree with this. I strongly disagree with that.
Oh, yeah.
So I did it again, and I passed, and you get this whole packet full of, it was like 100-page psych eval telling, under this circumstance, this person will do this and this. And, I ended up getting hired, and I was talking to one of the foremans, and I said I'm like, yeah, I failed that test twice. He's like, yeah, we only hire people that fail. He's like, I failed it 6 times before I passed it. So
I wonder if it becomes you somewhere where you're going, let me give what I think would be the right answer, rather than how I truly feel.
I think it was, you had to be like one way or the other. They didn't like people in the middle. Like,
okay,
you're like, well, okay, it's like a lot of the stuff I was just like somewhat agree. They wanted you to either really agree or really disagree. But it was just interesting that he joked that they only hired people that failed the personality test.
Well, even that Ringling Brothers Clown College application, what they were looking for, you find out years later, is someone with skills, but also someone they can mold for their show. Not someone that's so rigid and unwilling to change that, we had a few guys at Clown College, some of these guys from San Francisco who were the best jugglers in class, the best unicyclists. They were already street performers in San Francisco, and they didn't get offered contracts because they were sort of too set in their ways. to adapt it for life on the road with Ringling Brothers, and a lot of this is stuff you find out years later after you've been on the show, and then you're off the show, and years go by and you get a greater insight into what that whole process was about. So apparently I was a pretty moldable guy because I was fairly raw in my talent, but was eager. And, I just look at it as going, man, had I not gotten accepted, I don't know where my life would have gone. And it was the perfect life for me. Because I'll be sitting there with Meg, my wife, who owns a circus studio, and go, had I not done that, I would have never met you, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now. I don't know what that other life would be, better, worse. I mean, I'm not saying that. I love the life I have had and still having. So, boy, we really don't know.
You don't, and you start. There's that movie called The Butterfly Effect. I've never seen it, but I know the gist of it. And you start thinking back about how your little decisions like that to go to circus school led to this, that led to that. And it's just amazing how one life decision can, take you down another path.
Well, a lot of it is really those little decisions. To me, what my dad, the Navy chief, taught me are they're the little things in between the big things. Like he used to tell me, he says, son, you might be someday in a position where you're the leader of a group, or you're the boss or something like that. And he said, and he went like this. He was patting me on the back going, this goes a lot further than this. He was going, if I have to talk to one of my guys as a Navy chief, he has to take one of his sailors aside. He says, I never yell at him in front of all the other sailors, because then they all disrespect me. I take him to the side, talk to him about what's bothering me about him. I try to find something good about him and tell him that, because if I sit there and just point my finger in his face, I'm not going to get the best out of him. And he just said, be thankful in life. So, one thing you learn as an entertainer, I always send clients a thank you note after they hire me for a gig. And then sometimes they send me a thank you note for thanking me, because they're not used to being thanked. And, it's just like if you work for a big boss sometimes, and I hear this from Meg, her being, the CEO of her corporation, you don't have to do big things for the boss, but sometimes just look at him and go, how you doing today, boss? Just how's your day going? Or just send them a card and just say, you don't have to give them money. Just, hey, I really thank you I'm loving working here. Just, they too want to be thanked or just asked how they are once in a while. Not a big, give them go buy them a nut goodie, just, on the other hand, I always tell bosses, I go, look, if you get invited to the party, and I tell this to Meg, she was complaining once that her people don't invite her to the parties. I said, no one wants the general at the party, because you're going to be going around telling everybody, now you get to bed early because you got that thing tomorrow. But if we had a boss clown in the circus, Chucko, and we would have these wild clown parties on our train car, and he lived on a different car, and he would come by, he'd bring us all a bottle of blackberry brandy, which we hated, but he'd bring a fifth of that and put it in the kitchen. He'd stay about 20 minutes, and then he would leave. And that's what a good leader does. You show up, but you don't hang out long. You leave a couple of good treats, you bring a cake or whatever it may be. I know these are high school students, so I'm just going to say cake. And you spend 20 minutes, you go around, say hey to everybody, and you hit the road. So everybody can free up and go back to their fun party without being worried about you being there. It's better to show up at that party for 20 minutes than not show up at all. Then they just think like you don't want to be there. So it's coming in, staying short, getting out. That's a great leader, I think.
I grew up working at a grocery store, and one of the best bosses that the store had and everybody really liked, the thing he did every morning was he walked around each morning and said hi to each employee before he went up to his office. And everybody appreciated, that little gesture.
Little things, man. Now, in the circus, I learned another thing about this lesson. So now I got through clown college. I made the cut. I'm on Ringling Brothers Red Unit. And so now what you're learning is we had some people in clown college, a few people dropped out because they didn't think ahead to think, I got to clown every day for 11 and a half months, no matter how I feel. You get these people like, oh, I only like working on cars when I feel like it. I like Saturday, but I hate working on cars Tuesday. You got to do it every day. So they dropped out because that realization hit them in the face. Doesn't matter how you feel, man. You got to show up. And so I'd run into the arena every day, and we had the guys, we got the working guys, and we had two guys named Shorty and Spud, and they would pull the back curtain open when the show starts so we could all run out into the arena. And they're also the ones that shoveled up the elephant crap, and threw down the sawdust when the animals poop and pee on the track. And every day I'd come in going, Shorty, Spud, show business. And we had this little thing where I'd go, hey, today, you fly, I buy. Because as a clown, we're in our makeup all day. So like in between shows, I might want a gyro Greek platter from this place down the street that costs $4. So Shorty'd come, I'd give him $8. He would get the equivalent in money of what I'm spending. But his job was to go get my food and get it back to me. He can do what he wants with his $4. Get food, do whatever. But the important thing was this relationship you have just every day. Shorty, Spud. So Charlie Fry and I got to do this. It was called an emergency gag on certain times when the elephants weren't ready to go and the ringmaster and the performance director needed clowns to get out in the ring, and we had to work in the spotlight. So me and Charlie were called the Carolina Connection because we had an act, and we'd be doing our juggling steels act. I have a video of this on my YouTube site.
It's incredible.
When the elephants were ready to go, they would blow the whistle on us, and suddenly the lights just go out no matter what we're doing in the middle of the routine. So we're scrambling around the dark trying to find our hat and our juggling clubs, running out, hitting our shin on the circus ring, getting out of there because wild animals are coming down the track. And we'd be back in Clown Alley, and I go, hey, man, my hat is still out there. And here comes Spud or Shorty. About 3 minutes later, come in and go, hey, Sean, here's your hat. And hand me the hat. And I go, hey, man, thanks, Spud. And this one clown one time said, how come you never bring my stuff? And he says, you don't even know my name. And he walked out. They didn't have that little relationship of just 7 seconds every day of just going, how you doing there, man? Have a good day. Pull that curtain. Snap that curtain back today. Just something. And it's those little tiny things in between the big things that I think are always the most important. A thank you, a pat in the back, a hey, how you doing? And if that's a lesson I've learned in life, at the Minnesota State Fair, I've performed there 28 years in a row. And the woman that hires me, Renee Alexander, she's in head of entertainment. And people are either scared of her or, they don't know what to do for her. She's just in charge of them. And I always go get these Mike's hamburgers over by the giant slide. They're just these little unassuming hamburgers. You can wrap them in wax paper, put them in your pocket. All they have to put on them is sliced onion, ketchup, and mustard. And I always go buy some, and I go and leave a couple on her desk. I go in there, and I wait till she's not in the office, and I leave her a couple of Mike's burgers. And she always thanks me, and she goes, that was right on time. Thank you for doing that, because nobody ever gets me anything, because she's the head, And I buy her a $5 burger, and she actually seeks me out and thanks me for it. So little gestures, go a long way.
They go a long way. Just like you mentioned about knowing people's names. I've been at a lot of different new jobs, and one of the things I try to do is learn people's names, because I always want to address people by their name instead of, just, oh, hey, you. I had a boss back when I was at car school that I worked there for a year and a half. He didn't know my name after a year, because one day I had to wear somebody else's uniform, so there was a different name on my chest, and he called me by that name the whole time. It's like, after a year, you still don't know my name. And, knowing just the little things like that, somebody's name or giving a little gestures can go a long ways to help, that relationship that you might need later on in life.
It's a small little respect thing, and it kind of goes both ways, the little respect. It's like, if I worked at a school, the one person or the 5 guys or gals I'd want to know are the custodians. I'm going to need their help someday.
Yep.
Probably more. So I want to know them by name. And there's a great book out, or you can listen to it on audiobook. It's really good. It's called The Golden Art of Schmoozing. And it was written by a guy that I met in Ringling Brothers. He was the head of hiring the Ronald McDonald clowns. And people think of schmoozing as like you always are going to get something out of it. But the book covers it more complete, like schmoozing your wife, schmoozing your kids. Like, like if you were my son and let's say you were a 8-year-old kid and you were drawn, you loved cars, you loved auto mechanics, you built car models, and I'm your dad, but let's say I'm not into cars. I would It's going, recognize that in your kid and do something special around that for them. Take them up to Brainerd Raceway, surprise them, get them out of school, or take them on a weekend without telling them, or make a point of recognizing their passion and reaching out to it rather than try to stifle it. And it's sort of like sometimes, I've where I get my oil changed at Valvoline. I like, I don't know. I've just kind of gotten a relationship with some of the folks in there. And sometimes when I'm driving by, I just kind of drive up to the door when I see it's not busy sideways and just roll my window down going, "Can I come in this way? Do you have parallel parking?" And they just look at me going, "Dude, nobody does that to us. You're the only guy that ever comes by and does something stupid. And you don't go bothering them when they got the line out, but when there's just nobody there, uh, and they remember me the next time I go in. They don't give me any discount or anything, but we have a good chat. Just makes the experience a little more pleasurable to sit there in my car while they do my oil and check my wipers and just I just always mess around with them a little bit.
Yeah, those little things can go a long ways for people and makes everything more enjoyable.
And I hope for your students, it's good to learn, when you're in high school, thinking back is like, be ready to be open to it. Be polite, be thankful. It does sound corny, but people want to work with people that want to be there. If you're at a job and you don't look like you want to be there, I don't want to work with you. And I remember a lady telling me one time, she said, "Sean, you're going to have jobs in your life. And a lot of people think the last day on a job, they're going to do this horrible day's work." And she's going, "Keep this in mind. You're not doing that job for them. You're doing it for you. So do just as good a job on the last day." That wasn't even talking about what they do nowadays, people writing recommendations. Ultimately, any job you do in life, you're doing it for you, and you want to do a good job so you feel good about the job. Sure, it's great if you're pleasing management and pleasing your bosses and pleasing your coworkers. You want to be part of a team, but that job is a reflection of your work ethic and your caring. So if you hate a job and it's your last day, just do a great job on that day so they remember you for that, not to remember that you were horrible. Then you mess up everything you've done. And had I been in high school, I'd go, "Man, I'm going to mess it up." No, it's a great lesson to learn. Everything you do in life, you're ultimately sort of doing for yourself, to improve yourself, have a career, get to your life comfortably, add something to this world rather than take away from this world.
In one of your videos I watched online, you talked about improving as a clown, and always try and get better. How did you do that? And like, what drove you to improve as a clown instead of just, doing your same act over and over again?
I mean, I do it to this day. And just so your students know, I don't wear clown makeup or anything. I took those skills I learned in the circus. And when I moved to New York City after the circus starts street performing, it takes a clown a little while to get used to not having that face on. But you realize one thing I realized, nobody wants to pay a clown. So you take the basic skill. Let's say you're a really great mechanic, but you're also interested in automotive, leaning toward motor sports, and thinking, "I want a career in motorsports." And everybody says I can't do it. So let me look at NASCAR teams. Let me go look at Formula One. Like I watched this documentary about 6 months ago. We were talking earlier about motorsports that sit to the side, but those computer monitors, and they were just reading all the telemetry and things of the car. There's a whole competition for that. That's a huge, it doesn't happen without them, like maybe set a little goal going, maybe I should shoot for something like that. And if it doesn't work out, I still have these great skills. That will up your game to have a big goal. So just in general, you're going to get better rather than static, just sitting still. So to this day, like I always open my Minnesota State Fair show. There's people that come, they go, "This is our 18th year of seeing you." So I always do this opening act for myself. And I came out last year as Prince Pronto, and I write these songs, and it has nothing to do with my act. It's just people know it's me. I'm wearing this whole crown with corn dogs on it, wearing a cape, doing this thing. I'll do a couple of tricks, and I see people leaning over doing this to each other. And I know they're saying this, oh, look at the old man. He's still trying. And it's showing people that you're going to try. And, I sit out here in my studio. I'm working on new tricks right now. Some I may not have ready if the state fair even happens, but to work on the high level trick improves everything else. Because I'll tell you a quick story. Like when I was a circus clown and we played Madison Square Garden in New York City, we'd be there for 3 months. So I'm sure your students, I'm not sure if they've ever heard of this Broadway play. It's called Sugar Babies. And Mickey Rooney was in it, Ann Miller, who were all these they were child stars who are now probably in their 70s. And they took all these vaudevillians. And if you don't know what a vaudevillian is, look up vaudevillians. They were the old guys that would come out in the theaters and they do these weird little acts. 2 of these old vaudevillians were brought out of retirement to be in Sugar Babies. And they knew I was on Ringling Brothers at a time when there were still some of the older clowns who had been under the big top in the tent before the show was put in arenas. So I was really lucky Meg and I were there at those times. So the vaudevillians would come to visit the old clowns in Clown Alley. Clown Alley was our dressing room. No one's allowed in Clown Alley but the clown. That's where we can take our noses off, our wigs off, not be funny, smoke a cigarette, hang out, and not be entertaining. We just entertain each other. It's our secret lair. No access to us. No kids are going to come in or a family go, could we take a picture with you? You're just totally your place. So the vaudevillians would hang out and they go, listen, kids. Hey, all of you high school students, listen to this because I've been through this about 6 times now. They go, it's a circle. Life is a circle. Here's what I mean. It's a roller coaster. When you go to Valley Fair, you get on the roller coaster and you're heading up Wild Thing and the coaster rolls out and hits that first and you're going up the incline. Your heart's beating fast. You're excited. You know it's about to come. You get to the apex and then whoosh, you're whooshing down. That's this side of the circle. Everything's good. You're making money. Your career's great. You're happy. You got a gig. And then down here, the ride is coasting into a stop. He looked at us and went, this is where you're not working. This is where things are going bad. This is where bitterness kicks in. He said, go ahead, have your little pity party. But down here at the bottom of the circle, that's the most important part. This is where you get your work done. So-and-so is going to get drunk a lot, quit the business. They're tired of it. Their heart got dark. That's less competition for you. And right down here, this is where you start putting in your time. Nobody's paying you, but you train, you practice, you work out, you work on new tricks, you work on your promotion. So when you get back to this part of the circle where it goes, I got the circle backwards. There you go, click. That's the payoff. So you're getting paid. You're not getting paid. You lost that job. You don't have any work. You put in more work here. So when you get that click again, it pays off. You're ready, man. It's like an athlete that trains in the off season, And again, I didn't know what that piece of advice meant at the time. But, 10 years later, I went, I got it. And I've been through that like 6 or 7 times. I'm going through it right now to keep myself interested in my work. Like, let's say your students are, one of them opens their own auto mechanic place or wherever folks that, wherever your students would go in that field of motorsports or automotive work, body design, whatever. It might be designing cars. There's going to be a day when you're about 35 and you walk into work and no matter how great that job is, you're going to hear yourself sigh. Everybody wants something from you. You feel uninspired, whether you're an actor or in automotive. This is where you have to motivate yourself to do something different because this is like what my little motivational speech is about. It's about familiarity breeds contempt. And in Ringling Brothers by this. My first year, I'm staring at the elephants all the time. By my 3rd year, I wasn't looking at the elephants at all. It had become mundane. And you have to find a way to breathe life into your own career because nobody's going to do it for you. You wish they would. Nobody is, but you. And I took up playing the mandolin 20 years ago. Now I play mandolin with my friends all the time because it helped me with my juggling practice because it reminded me just to go back to scales. Like So I start every juggling practice now with 100 throws, high and low. I can't take a step. And let's say I'm at like 80 right now, or about 80, I start going, man, I'm pretty good. And that's when I start getting offline. So it's keeping the thoughts out of your head and just getting clean throws, high and low. If I move a foot, I make myself start over and just go into that drill. That's part of my scales, and just practicing patterns, I'll do 20 throws of up and downs, just do these drills. It's just drill rather, because I was trying to be creative in every practice and you can't. So maybe you get to a point in the automotive field where, oh, you're on the cusp of it's like watching Ford versus Ferrari or all these guys, these Carroll Shelbys and all these, great automotive guys who were engine guys, had these, or some of these Formula One guys that just had these engine brains that were just constantly coming up with stuff. Well, somewhere that's got to be hard. You can't just keep doing that. There comes an end to it. And if you're trying to force it, it won't come. Sometimes you just got to go back to your drills, let me just work on engines. And then that big moment comes where you go, what if I do this? So, these are really important things to recognize. But it's really just keeping yourself inspired to do it because no one makes you do it. I've seen so many performers around my age, and it happens to jugglers a lot about 35. They go, man, I thought I'd be a superstar by now. And you go, you're a juggler. You're not going to be a superstar. You're like the middle guard or a right guard or the center of a professional football ring. You win the Super Bowl. Yeah, you get the ring, but nobody's interviewing you after the game. You get to go home and be with your family and cook some burgers. They want to talk to the wideouts and the safeties and the quarterbacks, just accept the role you play it as best as you can and keep yourself inspired to do it. I mean, it sounds again corny, but I do it constantly. So when I go on stage, I want to be there. I'm excited to be there rather than go, oh God, I got nothing. You got to be excited about something new, and people see it in your face if you just don't want to be there. Sorry, that went on a while, but
no, it's perfect. And like you said, people can tell. It's in the eyes. Like you look at somebody, you can tell if they're excited about something or not. It can tell. You can't really hide that very easily that you're not excited. So you had a lot of great points about how to keep your drive and
keep that drive, man.
Engaged. Besides doing shows currently, you also run a business with your wife, Meg Zelias. Did I pronounce that right?
That's right. Yep.
And then you also teach a class at the U of M.
Well, this is my first year retiring from that. The students would have done their graduation piece about on Tuesday, but last year at the end of the year, I decided to let it go and I turned it over to one of Meg's coaches because I'm getting to an age where I'm trimming a couple of things off my life, and I'd done it for 20 years, and I really like the teaching. It's a BFA program. So I have to do a lot of evaluating on them. And like I told the students, I said, man, I love teaching you. I hate grading you and filling out all this stuff. But I said, it's time for me to let it go and pass it on to someone. I'm putting more time into my own personal pursuits like practicing, so I did this commercial art, but yet, I'm back to painting a lot now. Like I'm painting hammock paintings because I camp out a lot. There's nobody paints any hammock backpacking paintings. And one thing we were talking about earlier, when I went to school for commercial art, I didn't want to do it. And maybe your students maybe there's a couple of students in your mechanics class right now who, they're just doing it because it's a cool class. You never know. You might turn 55 and suddenly it just hits you in the face that you want to work on engines. I mean, whether it's taking a weed whacker apart, you just go, I just want to do this. You never know when it's going to strike you again. You're laying this foundation inside your body, in your brain that lays there, maybe kind of dormant. Maybe it goes away, but I always thought I can't wait till art just becomes something I do. I will say I'm at an age where I don't have to worry about it as a career or an income. So right now it's just something to keep me. By doing art, it stimulates me to go and practice for my show. And when you're a juggler, I do juggling and unicycling are the two things I have to practice a lot. Because when you get older, your reflexes slow down. So I have to train to stay quick. And then that way I can go on stage and go, well, I'm not worried that I didn't practice. So that frees my mind up to improvise with the crowd, because no one cares about juggling. It's about how you present it. You know, these old vaudevillians I was talking about earlier, they said another really cool thing. They're going, listen, kid, nobody cares about your juggling or your tricks. They want to get to know you. If you can make a connection with that audience, if you can get them in the gut, they'll watch you whittle a piece of wood. And I remember him saying that, whittle a piece of wood. And what he was saying was, if they like you and you engage them, they'll watch you do anything. But if you're just looking over their head and just juggling away and you never take a moment to recognize the audience, you might lose them. So, even, I wanted to come back to that story about I was mentioning earlier when I was in junior college studying commercial art, and I had that sales teacher that called me at home. Hey, Kerry Hawthorne here, Mr. Emery. Now, I know you don't know who I am. My mom answered the phone and handed it to me, said, it's a Mr. Hawthorne. He was my sales teacher, and I did not take the sales class seriously. I did not see why I needed sales. You probably don't know who I am. You're flunking my class. You're always asleep, or you never even come. I'm giving you one chance to nail it on this final. Now, the final was presenting a sales technique, and you had three options. You could do it live in front of the class. You could do a fake telephone sales that you just sat up at his desk and did with him. Or if you're really shy, you just sat at his desk and just did it with him one-on-one. Well, I always got my best results out of getting in front of the room. And I'm an introvert. Like even in high school, when we'd be in advanced English, we were studying, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And we had the same thing. The teacher said, we have to learn the prologue to Canterbury's Tales. Now you can sit up next to me at the desk and do it to me, one-on-one, or you can do it in front of the class. I was the only guy that did it in front of the class, So I made a costume. I made a microphone with a light bulb and a toilet paper roll. And I was going, wander every with a sute, the root march hath pierced to the root, and bothered every vein in sweet liquor. All right, but this means, y'all, is in April. Now, winter's going away and it's a little bit dry, but then the rains start coming and all the flowers start blooming in May. Once ever to seek with his sweet day breath inspired hath on every holt and heath. Winds were coming in, blowing that sweet wind. It was blowing all the pie. So I was kind of doing the prologue and explaining it. And of course I got an A+. And I remember a girl in my class coming up to me after going, Sean, don't you feel stupid up there doing that? And I'm going, hey, don't you feel stupid sitting up whispering it to the teacher? I said, no, I don't feel stupid. I feel powerful. Plus I got an A+ because I knew I would, because I got up and did it in front of the class and I nailed it. Or any report I had to do in front of the class, I'd go, all I got to do is get my timeline right, hit all my button points. You got to write it out and be, if you write the report, you have to be judged on your sentence structure and paragraphs. I just got to get the facts right and have a costume. So forget the question you asked. I went on a tangent.
You're telling us about your teacher for the sales class calling you.
Oh, for the sales. So of course I chose to do the sales live, and I went, I'm going to take my unicycle. So I took my Schwinn unicycle and I drew a picture of it so it looked fast. The wheel was there, the seat was leaning forward, kind of like how you see sports cars drawn, some lines coming off it. It was the Schwinn Unisport division. And I was going to sell unicycles. And at my age at the time there, like when I was in the 8th and 9th grade, there'd be all these guys at the drugstores on weekends, it'd be the Duncan yo-yo professionals. And it'd be two guys and they'd be doing all these yo-yo tricks. You go there and watch them and begging your dad to buy you a yo-yo. And I think, man, those yo-yo guys are so cool. I think about them to these days. They were like rock stars to me. So I was copying that, because half of you bought yo-yos and really never learned to get that good. I said, I just want to sell these unicycles. Whether they ride them or not, that's another thing. So I had this whole marketing idea. I wore a suit. My dad had a pointer because he was in the lumber business. Pull that pointer out. Did a whole presentation. Wore one of my dad's lumber selling ties. Presented it. Did it in front of the class. Nailed it. Mr. Hawthorne came up and hugged me. He said, you got to run with this. He said, not selling unicycles, what you just did here, the presentation. And he passed me. So, I got like a C instead of an F, but I would have never gotten that had he not called me and dared me to nail it. And once he did that, I wanted to do well for him because I felt like he's paying attention to me a little bit. He does see me. So now I feel bad for, doing so bad in his class. And what I guess the point of it is what I wanted to say, even if you're, you think you're going to work as a mechanic somewhere in the back room, ultimately you're always going to come up to a customer somewhere. And when you do, it's nice if you can explain, if you can just have, you don't have to be the most personable person in the world, but when us civilians talk to mechanics, we want them coming in going, well, yeah, I was in there now. I lifted up your hood. It came down, hit me in the back of the head. You might want to look at that little support bar. Now, I didn't have time for that today because I had to get down inside your engine because you got a cracked block. I want some passion from my mechanic because I'm going, man, I will come back to that guy or gal. They look like they were excited to fix it. But if I just get somebody coming out, it was a really tough job. Yeah. I mean, we got it done. I mean, there's a lot more interesting things I could have been working on today, but I did get your carburetor fixed out there, your fuel injection system. I mean, I'm a guy that like reads people. I'm more into personalities. Other people don't care about that, except for surgeons. I don't care if my surgeon has bedside manner. My nurses can give me that. I want that surgeon to fix me. They don't have to be nice about it. So I guess I'm just saying somewhere in life, you're always selling yourself. Like you talking about BMW, you're kind of selling yourself there to get a job. You go in for an interview, you're selling yourself. I go on stage, I'm selling myself because in that first 10 to 30 seconds, people are going, I don't like this guy at all. Well, I'm looking at their faces and I come out to them and go, hey, look, the more you clap and laugh, the sooner this crap is over. And then I step away and then they go, all right, I'll give this guy another minute, because they realize you saw that look on their face and you read it and you acknowledged it and you put down your juggling to go have that little moment in front of an audience. So sales, I think we're selling our whole way through life, really. Teachers have to sell themselves. Nobody, like I said, the teachers that put the effort in for me changed my life. I'm knowing they had to go home and make lesson plans and think this up. And, you taking the time to get this done. So hopefully your students can be inspired. Those are the teachers that motivated me beyond the subject as a human, and Mr. Hawthorne calling me, hey, Carrie Hawthorne, calling me at home and doing that. And years later, I was home visiting my mom while she was still alive. And I said, I'm going to look up Mr. Hawthorne and call him up. And I got his son and he had passed away. And I just wanted to thank him all these years later and go, you don't know how you changed my life by calling me. So I told his son, I said, I don't know, can I give you a quick story about your dad that maybe you never heard? And man, he just about cried because no one had ever related a story to him about what his father was doing for students, particularly the students that he saw possibly some possibilities in, but were not coming to class with their game on. And you as a teacher must see that sometimes where you go, I got to get to this kid. They got it. I just have to find the way to get to them. It's just like getting to an audience. And I know teaching at the U, one thing I learned, and I was this kind of student. Let's pretend you're me for a second and I'm going, all right, Sean, here's how you juggle. And I'm telling you all about it. I'm sometimes bad in this one-on-one. I'm looking at your hat. I'm looking at the color of your shirt, looking at your nose hairs, your beard, looking at the shape of your ears. But if you turn and go, all right, Sean, I want you to watch this. And I come over here, Lisa. And I teach Lisa and let you watch the exchange, I totally take it in. I have time to see the whole transaction and then turn and teach. Hey, look what I just learned. Teach it to someone else. And even at the U, I'd have the students that kind of would always stand really far back. And when I'd come near them, they'd kind of drift away and always up against the wall. And I'd give them a few weeks of that. I don't even make eye contact with them. And then I finally come in and go, trying to be invisible to me. And I grab them by the shirt and pull them to the center of the room going, I'm never going to be more than 3 feet from you all day today. And when I need a volunteer, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be you. And I go, you got to get in the front of the line once in a while. It was like football practice for head-on tackle drills. I played football in high school I won't go into that story. Mainly, it set my year up for me. I was an all-county player because I had a fear. I had fear of sitting the bench. I had to be on the team. And my dad, the Navy chief, taught me, he said, son, anytime there's a drill, just get in the front of the line, get it over with. So head on tackle drill. And in the 70s, man, you'd back off 25 yards and two guys had to run at each other and just clock each other. And I'd get in the front of the line and hit hard. And, you're walking to the back of the line with your helmet sideways, looking at your friends through the ear hole. And you've already gotten it done. And those ones in the back are just watching it and dreading it. You have more time to dread getting your head about it. But if you just get up front and do it, I'm a pow! It's over. You're in the back of the line talking until you have to do it again. So it's just like step up, meet it, get on with it. You can't hide from it. You're going to have to do it one way or the other. You may as well be the first to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Through high school and college, there was many times we had to give speeches or presentations and that. And I was always one. I didn't like to go very first. I was always volunteering to go second. I like to let somebody else go.
Second's a good spot too.
Let somebody set the bar, then go second, and then you're done the rest of the 3 days of presentations. You can sit back and enjoy.
Well, you're right, because second, it's like I'd turn around and go, I'm going full tilt. Because if I don't hit hard, then I'm going to be running laps, and I hate running laps. So anything that would prevent me from running, contact did not take a lot of running. That was just sheer bam, help the other guy. So you got your second guys because now they're going, well, now I got to go hard, But if you're the 18th one in the back of the line, you got a lot of time to dread it and think about it, and it's like I'd get called to my principal's office for a certain thing sometimes. Usually it was my mom calling to have him talk to me. I'd hear, Sean Emery, please report to the office. Sean Emery, report to the office. And I'd be thinking, I didn't do it. I didn't get caught. I'm very sneaky. And I get up there and my principal, Mr. Leger, Freddie Leger, I had him through junior high and high school. He was one of these guys that talked to you out of the side of his face when I come in. He go, so, Mr. Emery. And I go, so did my mom call for you to talk to me about my underachieving? He said, yes, indeed. He said, you're very average, possibly below average, but people think you're way smarter than you are. And I said, well, sir, this is something that I've been able to manufacture. This is my underachieving ability. People, to this day, people think I'm busier than I am because I can throw that game. Well, we don't want to call you. We thought you were busy. Oh, yeah, I was really busy. So I had this thing, and I said to Mr. Leger, just spitball, and I said, sir, you need average kids. Average kids they're your main team. I said, look at my smart friends, Myron Caldwell and a few of them. They're super smart. But they never get up in front of class. They can barely even say hello to anyone. But I've got a relationship with him because Myron tutors me for math. And he's a funny guy and he's super smart, but he would never raise his hand to volunteer for anything. So I would talk him into going, guess what, Myron? I got you editing the yearbook. So do expect a lot of pictures from me, and I expect you to put those pictures in there because who got you this gig? And I said, the average person steps up and does the talking. It's like the guy, when you're all out and you're getting ready to get in a big rumble. It's the guy up front going, hey, man, I'll tell you what I'm going to do to you. And you got your really mean friends that just come on up, and once the fight starts, you just step out of the way. You instigated it, and then you just went over to the car and listened to Ride in the Storm Out. It's the average person can get a lot done, And I was explaining that to Mr. Leger, and he'd just shake his head going, I think you're in the wrong school, and so we'd have these talks about that. And I'd tell him, I said, I have plans for my underachieving. I would rather be versed in the knowledge of a lot of things and know them fairly good, fairly well, than just know a lot about one thing. And that just always suited my personality. And it's worked well for me in showbiz because if I go do a corporate show and it's all automotive people, I know just enough that I can speak the language of those guys. Or if I go do construction workers, I've done construction, I know just enough to speak the language. If it's hospital workers, I've been in ERs enough that I know the language. If it's people doing windows, I know a little bit about extruded panes and R value, just enough. It's about speaking the language of the crowd and making that audience go, wow, this guy knows a little bit about us, about what we do. I did the House Movers convention. They couldn't believe I was going, who's the guy that runs around and takes the stick and holds up the power lines? You, the curly headed guy. They said, no one knows anything about house moving, you know? And I said, well, I've seen it. And I kind of just looked at your website a second and got a few ideas. So, you know, one thing when you're in high school is get a little self-aware of how you learn, what your personality may be. You know, honestly, think about it. And go, okay, if I know a little bit about how my composition is, then I can be comfortable with that and ride that through my career. You know, um, we don't all want. I don't like to be the boss. I'd rather be the old gunnery sergeant. You know, I've been through 37 wars. I don't want to be the LT or the general. I want to be with the NCOs. But you know, you're the guy. It's like, you know, you're the guy out there just with a pistol standing up, pow, pow, pow. Everybody else is laying down. You know, that guy, that's the guy I always wanted to be. You're the one that just goes around from foxhole to foxhole. How you doing there today? You know, and you win the heart. It's just like being a Navy chief. You know, you win the heart of the troops, kind of. You know, you run it. So it's worth thinking about and starting to think when you're in high school of just your, you know, the makeup of your engine and chassis and suspension and body work and interior. Are you leather or are you vinyl? You know, I mean, you know, what do you got? And expect that to change. You know, it morphs through life a bit. Okay, I said that.
Perfect. Throughout this whole thing, we've talked a lot about how different things have added to your arsenal. You know, you didn't know in college you need cells. At a young age, you learn how to juggle and ride a unicycle, and that became your career. In one of your YouTube videos, I thought you had a really great analogy about a keychain like a janitor.
Well, yeah, the keychain is like when I would teach at the U and I would teach circus skills, Meg and I would, to the acting program, the BFA actors. Now, actors, these are the kids usually, if you're going to school for acting in a BFA program, you know, you just graduated high school, you were probably the theater kids, you know, and probably very talented to get in this, even get accepted in this program. And as far as teaching them circus, it wasn't to turn them into circus people. It was to tap into a different part of their brain. Actors tend to be fairly cerebral, and it's to get them a little more physical. I'd have some of the kids, man, they just get into the, hey, Sean, look, I caught fire. You know, I call them my Labradors. Every day they're going, hey, man, I skipped a party. I was juggling my socks. Check it out. Every day they want to show you how they're doing. And then, like I say, you get your kind of the wanderers, you know, kind of drift away. And then I get the ones that just get up in their head a little too much. So by week 8, they won't even throw the balls because they're so scared of dropping. So I go, today we're not going to catch. We're just going to throw. We're just going to drop. But we're going to drop in rhythm. I hate to just say it out loud. I hate juggling. And it's funny. One girl once going, I said, juggling's not invited to the party. And she said to me, yeah, and she couldn't juggle yet. But I want juggling to be invited to the party. And I said, wow, you are so empathetic. I've never had anyone say that. But it's about taking you to a different place and giving you a different challenge is why we would teach them circus. And, you know, and when you see a student break through who by week 8, they can't juggle and all their classmates are, and then they finally get it. I finally see them get like 3 throws and catch. I actually see like an aura. It's like they get taller and a light goes off around them. And believe me, students, when a teacher gets that moment, that is the moment you're doing it, because it certainly ain't for the money. It's about inspiring someone to do something and helping them get there and seeing them do the work and then achieving it. And it's like such a cool moment to go, God, yes, you got it. And, you know, so I would say to the actors, one thing I'd say, I was going, so, you know, we all have these tool belts. I've changed it from a keychain now more to like you're wearing a tool belt, and you got your hammer. You know how to use a hammer. You got a screw gun, easy to use. You got your tape measure up front, but right in back there's a little pocket where your plumb bob goes. And a lot of them go, excuse me, what's a plumb bob? I'm going, oh, you need to learn what a plumb bob is, because when you need a plumb bob, you need a plumb bob. Now they got laser ones now, but there's nothing more fun than hanging that brass thing down a string. Find out when you're framing a house. But I said, you may not use that plumb bob a lot, But when you need that plumb bob, you need that plumb bob, you know, or that random orbital sander or that 90-degree drill. And I said, that's what circus is going to be to you guys. You go to an audition and they go, looking for a female in her 30s, and she has to have circus skills. Well, you got them. You have a basics in circus. You know, you don't have to go. You've learned it here. Maybe if you didn't practice, it's in you. It's laying dormant, ready to go. So it's like going, and you may never use it. It's just like circus people learning acting. Sometimes we're called upon to have to act more than do circus. You know the basic craft, so you're ahead of the game. So I think we're constantly trying to add a few tools to that belt or another key to that, you know, custodian's keychain. You know, they always have 50 keys, but now I'm going, now I got the one to the snack machine. Get myself some Cheez-Its and a knee-high grape soda. Get myself some bad indigestion. Because, you know, one thing about custodians, I remember talking to a custodian once. He says, man, you know what custodians hate? Because I did the custodians convention and I did a whole bit about going, I know you guys hate push-ups because it's that mix of orange and milk. It's young kids throwing up milk and orange juice, and you got to go throw that sawdust, those pencil shavings on the other man. We don't eat push-ups. Nothing with orange and milk. No creamy orange thing, you know. It's like the smell of vomit on an old sweater sleeve. Ah, God, you know, sour milk. So, yeah, we're constantly trying to, you know, you add it to your tool belt and you may never use it, but it's better to have it than not have it.
You know? I think back, one of the jobs I've had over my life, I did loss prevention for a store where I walked around in street clothes and I would stop and arrest shoplifters. And, you know, it was just, they needed somebody to do it. I needed a job at the time, so I took it, and I ended up arresting around 10 people during my time there. But then, you know, as a teacher now, it taught you how to deal with bad situations and difficult situations. And, you know, I use that key that I learned from being a loss prevention worker, you know, from dealing with shoplifters, because that's one of the hardest conversations you're going to have is stopping somebody and say, hey, you have to come with me because, you know, you're being arrested for shoplifting. And you can take that key later on being the teacher and apply that to, you know, difficult situations that I had to deal with now as a teacher. So you never know when you're going to have to pull out that tool you have on your belt or that key.
You know, nice to have it, you know, for those few times. Hopefully you don't need it, but it's nice to have it when you, if you do, you know, that's an interesting thing to have. Probably handy for a teacher to be able to defuse these situations. And, you know, it's like when you watch Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, you know, you watch the little bouncer who, you know, a good
I was just trying to say that
can just walk you out of the bar rather than fight you. You know,
when I actually got the loss prevention job, the manager told me, he's like, have you watched Roadhouse? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know that scene when he gets that job at the new bar and the bar manager told him, whatever you do, you're going to be nice. If you're breaking up a fight, you're nice about it. If you're throwing somebody out of our bar, you're nice about it. You're going to be nice until I tell you you can't be nice. And that's what my boss told me. That's how we're doing you as a loss prevention.
That's funny. You know, it's like when you get in an altercation, you get that guy going, hey, man, it's pointing their finger and yelling at you. I just stand there and usually I go, you feel better? That was a lot of yelling. Boy, you really got a tough, shaky hand. It's that guy that doesn't say anything and leans in and goes, it's going to hurt. That's the guy you got to be scared of. So it's like a good bouncer can come over and quietly and politely get you out doing the job without messing up anybody's suit. And then also let you know you're welcome to come again tomorrow, but tonight you're done, you know. And, you know, it's the same way. I've had some of the students at the U of M that I've had to take to the side. And one guy was always really boozy smelling and he'd cry in our class. And I'm a guy that hasn't drank in 32 years. And I took him outside quietly and I told him, I said, look, I know what's going on. And I can smell the booze coming out of you. And I don't know what your problem is. You're going to have to deal with it. But I will not tolerate it in this class. And I expect a lot more from you. I need you to respect this class. I need you to respect me and your classmates and be coherent when you come in here or do not come at all. And I didn't yell. I said it fairly, patted him on the back, and I said, I hope this makes sense to you because I'm rooting for you. But do not come to my class this way again. And he never did. come to class that way again. He showed up. I don't think anybody had ever talked to him about it, and it was really hard for me to, the old me, I remember my dad one time, and it's an old story, you see some crazy man on the side of the road throwing bricks at people, and you want to go over and smack him. But really what a guy like that needs is a hug. Needs somebody to, probably has no love in their life, probably a lot of self-hate, and you should just go over and hug him and go, man, get some help, make some friends, and just sometimes taking someone to the side and talking to them just firmly, fairly, and without anger or judgment, they might take a look at it. Nothing's for certain, but it's like, that's the Roadhouse technique.
Yeah, it's very true. It's a very good movie with a lot of good points that probably most of my students haven't seen because it's getting a little older for a movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie to watch, every 5 years anyway, just for the sake of it.
The last question I have for you, because I want to be respectful of your time, I really appreciate all your time you've given us so far today. It's been quite the pleasure talking with you.
Oh, same here.
How would you define success?
Well, I thought about that one, and to me, success has always been, I would urge your students too to think about this. And this is another lesson from my dad, the Navy chief. He said, son, I'm a Navy chief. We're always $10 short. Yet we always go on vacation, and we always went to the beach and ate tomato sandwiches. We didn't have the big elaborate, but our parents always took us on vacation. He said, it's more than what is in a man's wallet or a woman's handbag as defining their success. It's their quality of their life, including their job. If you love your work, which is one thing I learned from that Millennials video too. If you enjoy your work or you feel like it has value and integrity, that adds to your life. Do you enjoy the people you work with? Or if you're an introvert, if you're a person that really enjoys a job where you work alone, if you love that and people drain you, find a job where you can work alone. Even in show business, I work with an entertainment agency, but we don't see each other. We're all just expected to go out and do our jobs. Think about your lifestyle. Circus people do you need a house with 11 bedrooms? That's just more to fill and clean in the long run, unless you can afford a staff. And you got to think about what your quality of life is, what makes you happy. Do I want a paved driveway? Do I want a snow machine? It's something to think about, your quality of life. Does your house define you? Does your car define you? Does your job define you? So your riches and success this is one part of it, or is the whole bubble around you, everything around you. Two, and Meg and I have been talking about this a lot lately, is like, we've been listening to these circus podcasts of, like, my daughter's a circus artist. The modern circus artists go to college for it. They think a little different. Their thinking is a little bit different than mine and Meg's, who our whole thing was going, you got to have a job in this life. I loved the circus, and then taking that after I left Ringling Brothers and just parlaying those same skills into the career I've had to this day. We have paid our house off here in Roseville. And, it's like, and we're both from sort of, middle class, maybe even a little under middle class families. Have paid our home off, have put our daughter through college, pay our bills, have the life we like. And to me, success is a bit of it is just going, hey man, it's not material, but you want to be safe. And by safe to me is like, even during this pandemic, I'm glad that Meg taught me years ago, let's start putting savings in IRAs, which so many performers don't. I know guys my age who do not have any money. They just piddle it away. Just piddle it all away. And I won't say how, but they just do. And to me, it's just sort of building up your defenses. You don't need that much. And I'm at the age where I'm even considering retirement a bit. Not giving up work altogether, just finding some other things to do. Painting, whatever. Put more time in my YouTube, or let the YouTube go. I don't know, thinking about it right now. And I think that I had a friend once tell me, going, wow, you really think about all this stuff a lot. I go, well, it's my nature to kind of analyze, think things out, create scenarios. when they happen or don't happen, I've kind of played them out of my head. Not really visualization. So that would be my success, is just going, Meg and I have a stable life. We have a life we love. We've done well. We've worked hard. We're proud of our work. She basically runs the circus school. I always say she has the circus school in town, and she's been closed down too now with this whole thing. But they've had a fundraiser, and she's raised over $15,000 to pay her coaches full time while we're off. She's continued to pay them full salaries. I'm really proud of that. And that comes from part of the success work ethic. We always refuse to be starving artists. And even in my early career, people call me a sellout one time. I was like, what do you mean selling out? I'm just doing gigs, man. I go do a gig. I did a business plan on myself once ago. What am I saying? I'm just doing this. If you've had a bad day and you come to my show and I can take your mind off of it for a while, good. If you've had a great day and I take your mind off of it for 45 minutes, great. It's like when you read a great book or watch a great movie, or let's just say you're down under the hood or you're up under the car, on the creeper, and you're just, when you get into doing something and you realize, man, 4 hours just went by and nothing mattered but what I was doing. And to me, like for a show, just to take people out of themselves for a moment was my point of view on myself, going, I'm not really saying anything profound. I'm not doing stand-up comedy where I'm talking about how bad my relationships are or depression or how I like to fondle myself. I'm just keeping it sort of family friendly and just hitting all those bases without getting political, without getting religious, without getting gender specific and all that, just me. It's just a heightened version of me. And people, I love it when I get high school kids come up and go, dude, old dude, you were rocking, man. My dad can't even get out of a chair. He's only 45. I love when they call me old dude. And I go, excuse me, number one, I'm not a dude. I'm way too old to be a dude. I'm more like a bub, a Mac, a mister, a fella. Why don't you call me Bub? Give me that statement again and call me Bub. Dude, Bob. Hey, dude, Bob, dude. It's like, just kind of mess with them, because I feel that just by being an older man and still having some spark, that it's a great way, particularly high school, man. You can get really cynical in the high school age, and because I was there, and you've got to give young people some hope for their future. And I'm not talking about global warming and pandemics. I'm just talking as a human being going, it ain't over. You can still got a lot of spunk and sass left when you're old. Stay interested, stay engaged, stay passionate. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. I don't know how this sounds, but I've been saying it a lot lately. I think people sometimes are jealous of people's passions. Well, like I said earlier, oh, you're so obsessed with your control line flying. Well, no, obsession makes people cry. Passion actually makes people kind of envious. I think sometimes they envy your passion for something. And all you can say is like, well, I hope you find your passion and make time for it, whether it's bow hunting or gaming or, you like building birdhouses. I mean, it could be anything, model rocketry, motorsports. Maybe you want to learn about tire compounds. Why do the F1 cars have a red tire and a white tire and a yellow tire? It's the rubber, man. It's where the rubber meets the road. One's soft, one's hard. You got to look at the track conditions. Is it raining? Do you need slicks? Do you need the grid? Get into it all the way. Go in head first and go for it. And we need more passion in this world for things, and passion is not of. It's something to be proud of. And, you can kind of downplay it a little bit. Me, I like to throw my stuff out there. I know other people go, oh, yeah, I climb Mount Everest. I go, man, I'd be announcing that to everybody here. Did you lose a finger or a toe? Show that off. I'd be pulling that boot off going, look how many toes lost. Look at Mount Everest. It was great. Hey, students out there, stay inspired. Stay in the game, man. That's another thing the old vaudevillians, they go, stay in the game. Be in the game. You got to be in the game. Stay in the game of life. Stay in the game of interest, passion, crazy. Don't let people pull you down. Forget about all these haters out there now. I hate these people. Like I'm a hater all of a sudden. I abhor these people on the internet. I'll see a headline that go, haters are doing why do we care what the haters even think about? What are they bringing to the world? Nothing but hate. And we need people that can fix things and figure things out and develop and inspire and do all that stuff. And I know it sounds corny, and I would have been rolling my eyes at myself had I been your age, but hopefully 10 or 15 years, one of the millions of things I've prattled on about today will click in your brain and you'll get it. And maybe it'll get you through the next 2 or 3 years of finding some inspiration to move forward. Here's another. The Vaudevillian said this too. Always be on your way to the star. Now remember, stars aren't always up. If you're in the sky, some stars are to the side, some stars are below you. And then they added this. Don't be like Connie Stevens talking about what she did do. Look up Connie Stevens if you're wondering what I'm talking about. Sometimes a star is a lateral move. It's not that you're trying to move up in the world. It's just you're trying to move to a different place. I thought that was profound, but that actually took me 20 years to go, I get it now. So
now I'm going to have a lot of thinking to do today.
Yeah, just be on your way, man. Stay in the game and be on your way to something. And all of these two, Maxie Furman and Chaz Chase are these two vaudevillians. And I think they were so to be brought out of retirement and put into that play Sugar Babies. And now they're the darlings of Broadway. I think they thought their careers and everything were over. And now they're getting more notoriety at this age than they ever got through their 79 years old career. And so they were pumped and excited to pass this wisdom on to all of us young clowns going, look how old they are. What are these old guys yelling about? But man, I don't forget those things to this day,
Well, thank you for all your wisdom you have bestowed upon us. It's been quite a pleasure talking with you and a lot of fun.
Well, say, and I don't see it as wisdom. I see it as experience and just sort of paying attention and, just sort of paying attention and being lucky enough to have gotten this far and not just get my soul sucked out of me and being able to apply a few of these things to my life. And honestly, I didn't even really start implementing a lot of these techniques till I was really in my early 30s, things that I needed at the time to go, man, I need some inspiration, and pulling back these memories and going, I'm on it. If that'll get me through another year or two, and then you got to keep repeating them, just it's not a one-time thing. It's a lot of work to be a productive human, man.
It is. Well, I really appreciate your time. I hope our paths cross again sometime in the future. They should. Now that my girlfriend.
Yeah, same here, man.
Now that we live back in the cities, my girlfriend really misses going to Celaya. So once we're back through the pandemic, she should hopefully be able to go again, and hopefully we cross again. So yeah, thank you very much.
See you at one of the showcases I'm emceeing.
Yeah, you have a great day.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, man. Bye, everybody. All right, I'm going to click off. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right.